Listen, you really need to start pulling your weight around here. I mean, all you do is lay around. I've seen others like you do it. It can't be that hard. Would you at least try? Listen, I'll just call a cat I've seen online that knows how to do this. Hi, I'm looking for Matt the cat. Thank you. Hi, Matt.
It doesn't look like you're a cat now that I have you on video here.
I'm sorry to disappoint, Darren. Yeah, I am, in fact, a human being. Yep. Not even furry in the least, except for this little beard here.
You know, your title, no ads, no fluff, just the PowerApp stuff, describes exactly what your website, what your blog's about. It comes across really loud and clear. Everything's nice and clean. There's a good, coherent cat theme, of course. So how many cats do you have?
I've got one cat. His name is Tiggy. Full name, Tiggy Tiggerson, and he's a tabby cat.
Okay. So at some point along the line while you were developing your website, your blog, you came to the decision to use like a cat theme. Is there a story behind that?
Yeah, I've always kind of used cats as my personal theme ever since I started playing Counter-Strike back on my PC.
Okay.
I had a gamer tag, and I like to think I'm a little bit funny and a little bit clever. So my gamer tag was "You're Kitten Me." Kind of like "You're kidding me," "You're kitten me," and I had a picture of that very same cat that I use on Twitter for my gamer tag. So that's kind of where I started out doing that. And then when I decided to start a blog, I was thinking, well, for every blog post that I do, I'm going to have a picture on top of it. And I don't want to have a boring businessy picture every time I do it. But you know what? I bet you there's about a million pictures of the cats on the internet, and I could probably find a cat picture for each blog post, and the rest is history.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, there's of course cats are a big source of memes out on the internet. Well, I do have some. I literally have 20 questions to ask you today. Ooh. So once you agreed to do this, I wanted to be prepared, and I'm sure my viewers would be very interested in knowing more about you. And if they're not already familiar with your blog, they definitely are going to be now. So what's your background?
Well, right now I'm working at Hitachi Solutions Canada, where I've been a senior developer for the last 2 years. Before that, I was actually an accountant for 10 years. So this job is a bit of a switch. I went from being a CPA to a software developer.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you probably have a big background in Microsoft Excel.
Yeah, Microsoft Excel, all sorts of accounting packages, that type of thing. Started off cutting my teeth on VBA, and that's where I learned to code. What
was the transition from the VBA, Excel into PowerApps?
Well, I've dabbled in many different types of coding languages throughout my life. Like as a kid, I was writing web pages in Notepad.
Oh, not even Notepad plus.
Not even just Notepad plus. Just type in the HTML in there, right? I learned Basic, a little bit of Visual Basic. I spent 2 years dabbling in Python, a little bit in JavaScript.
Okay.
But the problem was when I learned these languages, like Python, for instance, I could build these amazing apps. But you know what? I could never find a way to bring them to work. I could never find a way to actually deploy them or convince an IT department to, start up an environment or a server that would allow everyone to access it. Then one day I found out about PowerApps because our company was going to be transitioning from, I think, Nintex forms to PowerApps. And I learned that all you had to do to deploy the apps to your company was just type in the name of the person who you wanted to see the app, and boom, kind of out the door it goes. So I got super, super excited at that prospect, and I just started coding away, but still for 6 months, there was no opportunity for me to actually launch an app inside of our company because, well, we just hadn't gotten the approval yet. So what I did is I went down to the forums, like the PowerApps forums, knowing absolutely nothing about PowerApps, and I just started answering people's questions like I knew something about PowerApps. Yeah. And in about 6 to 12 months' time, I became the #1 poster on the forums of all time.
Wow! Now, is this the official Microsoft community forums?
Yeah. I got something like 1,600 solutions over the course of a year. And it was an absolutely like ton of work. And I never want to do that much work again, but I was hooked. I was addicted.
There's probably a little bit of a learning process, even while answering people's questions. Would you say that was the case?
Yeah, pretty much. And I had to research all of them because I was just starting from scratch, but I started to recognize some patterns. And I found that something people had a lot of problems with was data transformation. So one of my first things I did was I created something called the collections cookbook. And if you want to do something like insert a row into a table or slice and grab the stuff in the middle or like do a group by count by the number of rows, it was kind of a reference guide that people could go and take a look at. And it actually had the code you can cut and paste into your own PowerApp. So it became pretty popular, kind of became my calling card and snowballed into doing like, user groups, getting on Twitter, sharing tips and tricks, and eventually starting a blog. And that's how Hitachi Solutions found out about me, just toiling away in obscurity up in Winnipeg, Manitoba, which is in Canada. And they reached out and my boss said, "Hey, would you like a job?" And I said, "Yeah, I think I'd prefer this to accounting."
Yeah. And I see it's one of the main headings. You've got collections cookbook, and you've got patch SharePoint guide. Okay, so those are the main categories or main resources that you have at the top of the screen. Very good.
Yeah, that's what I like to call sticky content that people are going to come back for multiple times. Usually when people are searching for something like a specific problem, they type it into Google, they find your website, they go there once. But what I tried to create are these more sticky pages that you would actually want to pin to your browser tab, so people would come back to your website multiple times and you kind of build a relationship that way.
Wow, that's genius.
Yeah.
I like that. So do you ever go back to the forums and continue to answer people's questions or get ideas for blog posts, or what's your relationship to like the forums now?
Yeah, I go back there from time to time and answer a question or two, but mainly what I'm doing now is kind of validating my blog topics. So one of the great things about the forums are you can actually see a little counter below each post that tells you how many times somebody viewed it. And if I'm researching a blog topic and I want to make sure that is an actual problem that people are having, I type in that phrase, I look for the forum post with the most hits. And if it's around, if it's over 10,000 or so, I say, wow, that's actually going to be a really good blog topic because people are searching it. Maybe there's something I can do here.
Wow, that's a great idea to do some research. Before time goes on, you probably want to tick your topics more strategically, probably, right?
Well, I think when you're a beginner, I think it's a lot easier to generate topics than when you've been in it for a few years. Because another thing I do when I'm looking for blog topics is I'm looking for those aha moments. So what do I mean by that? When I'm coding away at my computer for 8 hours a day, I have a little notebook beside me. And every time I figure out a little problem, I go, aha, oh, that's how you do that. I say, oh, that might actually be like a blog topic that somebody wants to hear something about. So I jotted away in my little notebook for later. And then, I have a list of, 10, 20 ideas at the end of the day. And then at the end of the week, I can kind of validate them and pick the best one.
Wow. That's awesome.
Well, actually, yeah, I kind of have a process, and you might not expect this is how I do it. So Darren, when you're writing an email, you probably write it like this, right? You start at the top, you write the introduction, what is this email about? Then you write the body of it, then you say goodbye, thank you very much, please get back to me in a couple of days. Now, if I'm writing a blog post, I do that a lot differently. The first thing that I do is I build a proof of concept app that I'm going to be showing folks how to build in my tutorial. Then what I do is I open up WordPress and I make screenshots and I paste all of the screenshots in order inside the article, just like a storyboard, right? Okay. Then the next thing I do is I put the code that you're supposed to write underneath each image. Then all I have to do to write the blog post is explain what's on the storyboard, right? Write it from top to bottom in that order, because I'm not a very good writer. Like, I'm not someone who could write a narrative, but I can explain pictures and code that I put in order. So I do that, and then I go back up to the top. I think about what I want for my intro and pick a nifty looking cat picture.
Wow, that's great. That's awesome.
Hey, if you're getting anything helpful out of this, a comment or even a like really helps the channel, and lets people like you know this is good content. Much appreciated.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of your blog posts. I'm like, man, he's like really organized with this, And a lot of times, especially my first few videos, I just turn the video. You just got to hit record. I'm like, okay, this is how I do it. I really like the whole structure. And I think you're my most favorite Twitter account to follow.
Thank you.
It's got some, you bring up some good things that aren't, not everybody is is talking about. To be honest, there was something that you just recently posted about, which was, when you publish a new version of PowerApps, why don't you see it right away? And I thought to myself, it's like, well, it's those people's browsers caches. Just keep hitting F5 for a few minutes, and you said, don't tell me it's the browser cache. And I'm like, are you saying it's not the browser cache? What? So it's like you dig a little deeper, Yeah. So I mean, I learn a lot of little things just by following you.
Yeah, I like to ask questions. I like to stir the pot a little bit. Sometimes when I ask a question like that and say, "Don't tell me it's the browser cache," I'm looking to get a little bit of a reaction from folks, and it seems like I have a knack for that. So
I'm a little surprised that you haven't started a YouTube channel, because
you're
a great public speaker, by the way. I've seen you speak at like user groups. I think there's videos of you on YouTube, like doing user groups and presentations. You seem like a great speaker. So what are your thoughts on that? You ever plan on doing a YouTube channel?
Well, the reason I didn't start out by doing a YouTube channel was actually because my house can get pretty loud at night. We have my daughter who's about 4 years old, and she loves run around the house, jumping off of couches and, yelling and screaming. And so I didn't think that was a very good environment for recording a YouTube video, because this is not a soundproof room. So that's why I started up with blogging. But I've started to think about YouTube recently, Darren, and I think the most natural place to start for me would be the greatest hits. On my blog, I have the top 10 most popular posts. Yeah. I know that folks want to hear about that. I know folks would love to see like a video version of that. Yeah. So I think if I start YouTube someday, that's exactly where I'm going to start. I agree. And I'm a little bit jealous of YouTube on search rankings, because they always get like the second row of search results. So my blogs always have to be right under that.
Yeah, I think that's sad, because it's such good quality, and like in fact, when I was actually having lunch with somebody, and I'm interviewing this guy. He runs like blog about PowerApps, but he's got all these cats, and it's like really cool blog, And I was trying to bring it up. I remember, Matt, I couldn't remember your last name, so I did cat blog, and when I did that, of course, the official Microsoft cat, they have a
PowerCat, yeah.
Yeah. Of course, that all comes up, and it's like, man, I'm sure you get hundreds of thousands of views on your site every month, but I'm surprised you don't appear higher than what you do.
I'm just thankful for the search rankings that I get, because you know what, it actually takes a long time to build up to that. If you start a blog and you think you're going to start ranking like in the first 3 months or 6 months, sometimes even outside of a year getting great rankings, like it's not going to happen. This is something where you have to find ways to stay motivated outside your number of hits kind of until you get there. There has to be like an intrinsic reason that you're doing it. And one of the big reasons that I do it is this is like my journal, right? These are my best practices. These are my techniques. And I go refer to my blog all the time and just say, oh, this is how I did something great. I'm going to do it this way today too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it takes a while.
Yeah. Wow. I'm surprised. Like, I just started a few months ago. Well, one thing that I created a video about a button, just something really basic.
Yep.
And I was surprised how popular it's become. And so my wife does graphic design. She does websites and stuff. And
mine too.
She oh really?
Yeah.
Your wife's name isn't Nicole, is it?
No, Marie. Yeah.
Okay. But she talks about, she does websites, blogs for her clients and stuff. And we talk about, she references like a ghost town phase. Like you start creating blog entries, and for the first 6 or 8 months, it's sort of like a ghost town. You're not getting anything. It's sort of like I sort of got that sense about how you were describing. Like it takes a while for you being out there, and you think about like a ghost town, like a town where there's nobody there. There's like a little tumbleweed rolling around, and then all of a sudden, I guess Google decides, like, yeah, okay, this is some good stuff over here. It's been around for a while. Is that what your thought is? Like why it takes so long? Is Google sort of waiting? Or what's your opinion of like why it takes so long?
Yeah, so one of the big ways that Google ranks you in SEO is what's called your backlinks. And backlinks are how many unique websites are linking to you. And so that takes a time to build up. I mean, it's kind of like your own internal reputation. If you link to me on your website, that tells me that Darren Neese trusts Matt Devaney's content, right? That's how you go up and up and up the search rankings, as well as if you have a site with a really high reputation, like say a university web page or like the Microsoft web page. Those have more influence over your backlink ranking. And so you kind of have to also like build up this body of work too, where what am I trying to say here? So traffic is kind of chunky in a way. If you ever heard of the 80-20 rule before?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, so 80% of your hits are probably going to come from 20% of your posts, and the other 80% is probably going to make up the other 20% of your traffic.
Okay.
So you have to write a lot of blog posts in order to get a hit.
Wow.
1 out of 5, 10 out of 5. That's where most of the traffic comes from. And those are the ones that start to become like the anchor page for your websites, and people start linking to it. And then once you get that first hit, your reputation starts to build, and Google starts testing you on the front page and seeing if folks are going to stop at that web page, and it'll solve the problem. So,
yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I love this type of insight. Yeah.
Yeah, writing catchy headlines too kind of helps.
Yeah. So how do you come up with the headlines or the titles to the blog posts?
One of my biggest hits is all about how do you insert data really quickly into a SharePoint list. And so if I was to speak it plainly, I just say like how to bulk insert 1,000 records into SharePoint. But I came up with a little catchy of a title: patch multiple records in PowerApps 10 times faster. You read 10 times faster? Man, I gotta see that post right there, because he's telling me I'm going to be 10 times faster if I read his post.
Absolutely. So that's one of your more popular posts then, huh?
Yeah. I think that was actually my first hit. Yeah, my first big hit.
Wow, that's cool. So do you just like think to yourself like how could this be more like of a hook or maybe grab people's attention, or do you use like any type of? I know there's a lot of SEO tool, keyword research type of tools out there. Do you use any of those, or do you just think to yourself what would catch people's attention?
Yeah, I do use a little tool called Keywords Everywhere, and it pretty much just shows you what other people have searched for, but it's not really like the main thing that I do. If I'm like writing a headline, I just try and take the basic thing I'm doing and jazz it up a little bit, like a foolproof way to share PowerApps with external users instead of just share PowerApps with external users, or just kind of like stuff like that. Or the secret way to view Word and Excel files in PowerApps, rather than just how to view Word and Excel files in PowerApps. You hear the word secret? Do you want to know secret, Darren? I want to know secret.
Absolutely.
I'm looking at that webpage. Yeah, this is all copywriting and advertising, right?
Yeah. I think you've touched on this a little bit, but how do you select your topics?
Yeah, so I actually have a backlog of topics on my phone, and throughout the day when I'm working, I might think of a topic, write it down on my phone, have a list of, anytime 10 or 15 topics. And then at the end of the week, I just pick one out of my my list or my backlog on my phone. Yeah. Okay. And I'm always trying to use something that I've done, in the past week or two, because if I'm trying to be too clever and come up with something that no one's ever done before, or maybe even needs to do, that's not great. Now, if I explain a technique that I just used, I needed to use it, so it validates that someone else might need to use it, and I don't even have to think that hard about what's the topic going to be this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what if you've seen that it's already been covered before? Does that deter you from writing about it?
Oh my God, no, not at all. Like I don't care if I'm first or 31st. Actually, if I'm 31st, that's probably a good thing, because it probably means that other people have had that problem. But you know what I do try and do? I try and write a better quality blog post than anyone else who's come before.
Okay.
Like when you're blogging and you want to put out content each week, there's no way you can ever be clever each and every week. The only thing you can do every week is write higher quality content than the next guy. So that's what I try and do. And to be fair, it's not a competition. I don't view this all as a competition, but I think you can get value in two ways. Like you could do something cool and clever, awesome, or you could just be a better writer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or a better public speaker, right? Or a better way of delivering something as to opposed to the more clever way of doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, a whole thought on competition. Somebody told me before was, when you listen to music, do you only listen to one band on Spotify? I'm like, No, not at all. It's like just because you have a favorite person out there doesn't mean you're not gonna see all the other YouTube or the other blogs out there. So don't think of people as competition. You're just another band that people like to listen to or watch, right?
What is your favorite band, by the way, or what is one of your favorite bands?
I like there's a band out there called Third Day. I really like.
Okay.
That.
Yeah. I really like I like Nine Inch Nails and their electronic music and their fusion with rock, but I also really love Kesha.
Kesha.
Okay. Yeah, TikTok and
Yeah. Now I listen to different music while I'm doing coding or PowerApps than what I would do, let's say, just driving down the road. When I'm coding, I like to listen to instrumentals that sort of I know there's a YouTube channel out there that says like coding music or something like that. And it just sort of, I think it's called chill step. And it's like, wow, it sort of chills me out, but there's a little bit of a beat to it just to keep me going. And I don't know, I'm distracted real easily. So if I listen to music with words, I always, so do you listen to any type of music specifically when you code or concentrate?
I love to put on like the most banging music I can find. Like I put on, actually, right now, I'm actually listening to Hamilton, the musical, on loop. It's like 3 hours long while I'm coding. But I just absolutely love that stuff. Yeah, show tunes. Bet you never expected I code to that.
Not at all. Yeah, I wouldn't have even thought about that. Like, I think, the big, awesome guys out there, Shane Young and Reza and Dano Christians, I see them cover a topic. It's like, why would I ever, I mean, they covered it great. Why, so I always try to think of something different. But so that's a good spin on it. It means like there's more people out there looking for it. I never thought about it that way.
Yeah, you really got to figure out what it is about yourself and your style that makes you special and unique. And as an accountant and a business analyst, I spent 10 years writing work instructions. So I figured I was going to be a whole heck of a lot better at doing that than I was at recording video. And outside a handful of folks, I didn't really think there was anyone out there who was like the Shane Young or the Reza Durrani or the April Dunham of blogging. Right? Because the consistency just wasn't there. Those folks release every week. So I figured, hey, maybe here's a little niche I can come and slot myself into.
Yeah. So is there any thought behind, I'm definitely not going to run ads on this?
It could happen someday. I'm not going to say like never say never, but my website right now is kind of like my digital garden, right? It's a place where I just want it to come and be peaceful and relaxing. And I don't really have a time or space for ads at the moment. So I think when I was talking earlier about what my process is with laying in the storyboard, then the code, then writing a narrative on top of that really explains it. But I think another important thing about my publishing process is just, the frequency at which I release and the predictability with which I do it. Because I really think there's two keys to success in blogging and like video logging and just basically anything you do, Darren. Mm-hmm. I think it's putting out high quality content every time with consistency. So I make sure that I publish an article each and every Sunday. So it's in people's inbox Monday when they arrive at work and they have a little treat and have a little bit of spare time to take a look at it. And I think after doing that about 70 to 80 times, I think it's actually closer to 90 so far. I think people have come to expect it. And so at the same time, it's like, this guy doesn't seem like he's just going to up and leave. Like maybe his newsletter is worth subscribing to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's cool if you release something at the same day every week. You a lot of times dread Monday. It's like the weekend's over, got to get back to work. But it might be their lunch break or it's Monday. So it's something to look forward to. Like open up the latest video or blog post that you released. Absolutely.
Yeah, and you can probably imagine it's tough to keep up with that schedule. But if you have the list of items on your backlog, your writing topics ready to go, and you write like an article in advance in case you get sick, like you can definitely do it. But it probably takes like maybe 4 or 5 months to actually get used to that and not really feel the pressure as much anymore.
Wow. Yeah, I felt the pressure. I've been trying to release one good solid video, full effort video.
It's hard, right?
It is, especially when, you're busy during the week at work and you're trying to do a video on the weekends. And it's like things come up on the weekends. Family, I'm a father of 6. So you mentioned your kids make a lot of noise. I definitely know what that's like.
So what's your motivation that's kept you going doing that? Because it's hard. Right? Most people probably do this. They write their first or second blog, publish their first and second video. And within like the first 1 month to 3 months, they put the pen down, they put the video recorder down. Like, what's kept you doing it?
Yeah.
What's your motivation?
Well, I know for myself, I haven't been doing it for very long, maybe 6 months or so.
That's a long time.
It's always something I've wanted to do, and I was a Microsoft certified trainer back in the early 2000s, and I worked at a Microsoft certified technical education, or they're called Microsoft partners these days that do teaching. And I worked with a bunch of guys that taught network, and I was the developer guy. And I always enjoyed that, probably almost more than writing applications. So and I've always heard that it takes consistency, exactly what you're saying. It takes consistency doing, if it's something as simple as one piece of content a week, be consistent at that, So that's what I've been trying to do, even though it doesn't seem like I'm getting that many views or whatever, just be consistent. Of course, I look back at my first few videos and I'm like, I almost feel like deleting them because they're so low quality. I don't know if you ever had that. Did you ever have that issue where when you first started out, I'm sure comparing your recent stuff to your first, let's say your first 10, did you ever go back and delete or go back and revise those?
I've never deleted stuff. I've definitely revised a few things. That's a great thing about blogging is you can come back in there and update your blog post at any time, whereas with video, it's just kind of like frozen in the moment. And especially when these technologies change, that's really, really nice. But if you write a not so great blog post, even when you're first 10, you pay for it and you pay for it because people keep on hitting you up in the comments and saying, I can't actually follow through with your tutorial. And I'm like, oh man, I'm going to have to actually rewrite this. And it happens. It happens.
Yeah. What do you do to promote your work, if anything?
Yeah, I have a small system there too. So first of all, once I hit publish, it goes to all like 1,200 of my subscribers so far in email, right? There's a little subscribe button on the top of my blog. But I also think it's important to get out there in social media and promote your work in a regular way as well. So every Monday morning at 7 o'clock, I'm posting on LinkedIn and Twitter. It says new blog post in this PowerApps article. Matt Devaney is going to show you how to do such and such. And he's also going to reveal this really spicy tidbit here, right? Again, a little bit of a marketing hook, some copywriting. Then in the second post, it's not just a straight link. Like I do a second post on Tuesdays, and I like to include an animated GIF in my post. Because on Twitter, animated GIFs, like animation, is something that catches people's eyes as they're going down the timeline. And if you can explain the value of what you're going to give them in the article within a little 3-second GIF, well, they're going to click on that link, right? Yeah, it's all about trying to convince people that you're going to give them enough value if you click on that link to make it worth their while.
Absolutely. Yeah,
and I was an accountant for 10 years, so trust me, this is marketing advice you can use. I'm just kidding. I'm not a marketing pro, but these are just little pieces of advice I've picked up over the years.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you're you do some type of analytics on your site, so you see the numbers and you can sort of analyze things and help you see trends and that type of stuff. So I'm sure some of your accounting stuff actually helps with that, right?
Yeah. And speaking of analytics, this past month, I think I hit 140,000 page views, which is new record for me. Started from the bottom, now we're here, just like Drake says, right?
That's great. Yeah.
And in the past year, got up to 1 million hits in the past year. So
wow,
we're still going up. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So how long has the blog been out there? For about a year or year and a half?
It's been out since July 2020.
Okay.
So I think we're coming up on second anniversary right now.
Yeah.
Now, in the first half a year that I blogged, I didn't get that many hits at all. I think I had maybe 50,000 combined or something like that.
Oh, wow.
But then after it started to get a bit of a reputation through people linking to the site and doing good on Google rankings, then it kind of shot up over the past year like a little hockey stick.
Yeah. That's awesome.
But I still think I'd be doing it even if I didn't like have this modest bit of success, because I think it's just so valuable to be able to go back and see what you did and have a little journal of all those things. It's become invaluable over the years.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's something satisfying after creating a piece of content. I feel.
Yeah.
You finish it. I talk to my wife. It's like, I finished. I hit the publish button and I did all my, my thumbnail and everything. And I don't know, there's something really satisfying about that. I'm sure you feel the same way about a blog post.
It's all about getting that first comment at the bottom of the blog. Right, Darren? It's all about getting that first comment at the bottom of the YouTube video.
Absolutely.
You see that like one living person actually gave a damn about what you wrote. You're like, oh, this is so good.
Absolutely. You know, you get so many views, and then out of those views, you get so many subscribers. Of course, I'm talking about the YouTube aspect of it. And then out of so many subscribers, you might get, you know, maybe a few likes, and then a subset of that, you might get one comment, you know, as far as like a funnel, you know, so the comments are huge. Absolutely.
And you got to make sure you answer everyone, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I think there's something to be said about for those that answer. I think a lot of the good YouTubers out there, I mean, they try to respond to every comment because it feels like, hey, your comment, your journey matters while watching that video, and the author sort of cared about, you know, you watching the content or reading the blog entry, you know, something on both sides. That
it's all about engaging with the readers. And it's also great because if you make a mistake, they can point it out and you say, thanks, like, this is awesome, I'm going to go improve my blog. And then, you know, they feel like they helped you out, right? So you're building a little bit of a relationship there. And some of the comments even provide content, right? People say, oh, I would have done it this way, and they go into some big detail. And I think that just makes it more interesting for people to read. I think after that, it's really just the motivation piece. Like, what are your expectations for what you're doing, and what are you getting out of it? Because let's face it, to be successful at anything, blogging, YouTubing, content creation, you're going to have to be in this game for a hot minute before you see any results. So developing that routine, doing things consistently, figuring out your system for efficient content production, that's where it's at.
Yeah.
So you've heard of context switching before, right, Darren?
Yeah.
So context switching is when you're doing one thing over here. Maybe I'm typing an email, but oh no, Microsoft Teams popped up, so I got to respond to that chat message, and now I got to go back to coding about my app, right?
Absolutely.
And one of the reasons it takes people a long time to write blog posts is because they're constantly context switching, right? Mm-hmm. They're doing the writing, and then, oh, I need to put a screenshot here, and then I'm writing, then I'm putting code, then I'm doing another screenshot, right? You can see it's like, and that could take a heck of a long time.
Absolutely.
But one of the reasons I use that storyboarding method I told you about earlier is it reduces the amount of context switching, and you're able to do that like a heck of a lot faster. Another great place you can go if you're not confident as a writer is this website called Hemingway App. Have you ever heard of Hemingway App before?
Not the app, no.
No? Okay. So you just go to Hemingway, I think, .app. If that's not right, just search it in Google. You paste any paragraph that you've written into there, and it'll tell you if the words are too complicated. It'll tell you, if you're not saying things plainly and concisely. Isn't there like, I guess it's kind of like a free version of Grammarly in a way, right?
Okay. Yeah.
But
Hemingway was known for sort of stripping away everything that was sort of like fluff and just simplifying what he was saying, right?
And what's my tagline?
Just
no ads, no fluff, no PowerApp stuff. You say it right there, no fluff, right? That's how you strip out the fluff.
Okay.
Whenever I think I'm being a little bit verbose, I just pop it in there. And I think it's all about how fast can you deliver content to a reader and how quickly can they get like value from your articles. And if you're writing something flowery instead of like instructional, I think it just takes that much more time. So I'm always trying to reduce my word count. That's actually why I use a lot of pictures to explain things too. Because people understand pictures a lot of times where they don't understand words. That's why YouTube is so popular. Why can't we do that on blogs too? The only reason is it's a lot of effort. So take the effort to put lots of pictures in there.
Yeah.
You're going to love it.
I tell you what's great about a blog entry, more so than a YouTube video, is sometimes there could be a 20 or 30-minute video, and you're just wanting to look at some key information. With the blog entry, you just scroll right down to it, especially somebody like you has screenshots. You can just go and see the screenshot. Like, this is the part that I'm looking for, So absolutely.
Yeah. And there's other techniques I use there too to kind of signal to the reader that they're going to get value out of this. At the top of every post, I have a table of contents. So every 2 or 3 paragraphs I have a heading, and it's like, okay, I can quickly tell what's going to be shown to me in this article because I can just read the table of contents and see if it's for me. Then right after that, I show like an animated GIF or a picture of the completed app. I had a friend who was a teacher. She said, the problem with teachers sometimes when we're teaching is sometimes we're doing lots of explaining, but we're not really showing where we're going. So show where you're going in advance. And that's what I try and do with my blog posts.
That's great. Yeah. Absolutely. I think I saw one of your Twitter posts about how to structure a good blog post. And I'm like, this guy really put some thought into this. This is really good stuff.
Yeah, at the risk of being preachy, I put a couple tweets out there, but they're really just my own personal philosophy, right? So I think hashtag blogging tips is what you want to search. If you're wondering how I get my screenshots from my blog, I just use MS Paint. It's nothing fancy like that. It's MS Paint and a WordPress. I slapped a Cloudflare on my website, right? Basically, it serves your website all over the world and makes it a lot faster.
So what do you do in your free time?
I really like to go hiking in the outdoors. So I live in Winnipeg, Canada. And the best thing about living here is if you go an hour north, you're at Grand Beach, and it's the largest freshwater beach in the entire world, right? In Winnipeg, Canada, right, where it's ice and snow, largest freshwater beach in the world. If I go west by an hour and a half, I'm in the Carberry Desert, right? Desert as in dry. I can go hike in the sand dunes. If I go east by an hour, I'm in the Canadian Shield and the Boreal Forest. And if I go south for an hour, I'm in the Great Pembina Valley, which is more prairie terrain. So this place is a great outdoor playground. I just absolutely love living in Winnipeg. It's awesome. Oh my gosh, we had 4.5 feet of snow in our backyard. It was sick.
I was going to say, I'm originally from the Midwest, Indiana, Illinois area. So I know January, February is pretty bad, but I'd imagine it's even worse up there.
I'm 6'6", and we had snow drifts on the side of the road this year that I could not see over. When the snow clearing equipment went by, they made these huge piles, and they were like ramparts, like the side of a fort.
Wow.
They were taller than me. It was just phenomenal.
Have you done much with, let's say, model-driven or portals end of PowerApps?
Not so much with portals, but I build a model-driven app for pretty much every Canvas app that I build. Really? Model-driven apps and Canvas kind of go together like maple syrup and pancakes, right? You can't have one without the other. Because how are you going to see the data that you put into these apps and give people a convenient way to view it without making a model-driven one? I cut my teeth on Canvas. I'd say that's my number one skill. That's my killer skill. But I definitely build model-driven apps as well. And the only reason I don't share them on the blog as much is because the barriers to entry are higher, right? You got to pay for that premium license, which is absolutely worth it in my mind. But in terms of getting people off the ground and using PowerApps, to cast the widest net, capture the biggest audience, I try and stick to the stuff that's not always going to be premium.
Yeah. So work you guys pretty much target Dataverse as the data source?
Oh, yeah. I think I've had maybe one SharePoint project in the past 2 years. The rest of it has all been Dataverse. But if you read my blog, all I blog about is SharePoint. So you'd probably get a very different idea from reading that blog versus what I actually do. Yeah. And Dataverse is great. It's awesome. If you're building a Power App and you have a choice, you should absolutely choose Dataverse. It's so much easier to work with.
So that's interesting that you pretty much every app that you build, you got a little bit of both, and model-driven and Canvas. That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and don't let anyone tell you that you shouldn't be building apps on SharePoint. Don't let anyone make you feel bad about that, because you know what? Some of us, we just got to work with what we have, and that's what we're good at, right? In little companies, being scrappy, and SharePoint is a perfectly valid place to develop Power Apps, and I like it.
What about Power BI, Power Automate?
Yeah, Power BI is actually where I got my introduction into the Power Platform because, as I said earlier, I was an accountant for 10 years. And I kind of have a funny story where I got in trouble with using Power BI, if you want to hear it.
That story.
Well, my favorite boss ever, her name was Angie Kohler, and she was the assistant controller in the accounting department. And she saw that I was a pretty cautious guy, and she said, Matt, you need to take more risks once in a while, right? You got to break out of that accounting shell. And you know what I want you to do? I think it's better if you would ask for forgiveness once in a while rather than asking for permission. And so I kind of took this to heart, and I had this huge treasure trove of information as an accountant on our companies, like gross margins, revenues, costs, product lines segmented by what we sold. And I said, wow, wouldn't this be really great if I threw this into, a data model in Power BI and published this all up to the cloud? So I worked on it for about 3 months and came up with something like I thought was amazing. And I showed it to my boss. She said, wow, this is great. Where did you say this was again? In the cloud? This is 2016, by the way. Oh. She's like, well, the cloud, like, is our data still like on premise here? Like, what's going on? Did we lose our data? Did we? I'm like, no. And there's this whole big row between like IT and finance after that. And I actually had to take them through the terms of service, like line by line on Microsoft's website. And it's like, no, we still own our data. It's okay. I read this. It's on the North American tenant in the good old, in the good old US of A. And in Canada, so no foreign government's gonna get this, and eventually things turned out all right. But and she said, "Well, I did tell you to take that chance, so
It's good that you remembered that."
Yeah. Everyone had a good laugh. I did not have a bad time, at least when that happened. But yeah, and then we started using the technology. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, I'm a little surprised that we don't see more Power BI on your blog, but that might be a smart thing, just to sort of focus on one aspect of the Power Platform.
It's gotten so big, Darren. Like, you really can't claim to know everything anymore. Yeah. I still think I'm an pretty good intermediate user of Power BI, but if I started writing about that in my blog, I'd have like no time for PowerApps and Power Automate, which, another blogging tip, I think it's really important to niche hard first. Mm-hmm. I think it's really good to try and write on a really focused topic to start out and try and become known for something and branch out there. And that's why I've done Canvas apps so aggressively in the past 2 years.
Absolutely. So have you done, I'm sure you've done some stuff in Power Automate.
Yeah, here and there. Like I'm definitely not blogging at the volume that Peter Veenstra is with his SharePanes website, which is absolutely phenomenal, by the way. I love that guy's work.
Yeah, but I love that. The guy's got like some back pain.
Yeah, first time I saw that website, I was like, what's this guy doing? But again, right, it's a catchy image. You remember that the guy's got like back pain. You remember that this guy's blog has cats. It's something different. It's something unique. You always need to find that differentiator.
Yeah. Are there any other blog posts? You mentioned one that was probably the most popular. Are there any other particular blog posts that are your favorite or have really performed really well that you wanted to mention or talk about?
Yeah, sure. I think the one that I mentioned was how to patch records 10 times faster. That was my first hit, but the most popular one I've written is actually all about how to upload files to a SharePoint document library for PowerApps. And a couple of years back, Shane Young came up with this really crazy awesome method to do it, because we couldn't do it before. You had to like translate a file to binary and then put it into Flow and generate a file. And I was like, how did you even know how to do that, Shane? You're a genius.
Thanks.
Like, come on. And then I found another way to do it where you didn't have to do that. Like, I found an even, I would say, like a little bit of a simpler way. And so that one probably gets something like 6,000 views a month, right?
Oh, wow.
If you think that this past month, I did 140,000 views, like 6,000, that's like close to 10% of my hits are coming from one single post there, right?
Wow. So if somebody's viewing this video and they want to check out that specific post, is there an easy way to find that here on your site?
On the right-hand side, you'll see all of my most popular posts. That one will be right up at the top.
There we go. Okay, very good.
And I think it's called the easiest way to upload a SharePoint, so a file to a SharePoint document library, right?
Yeah. And there it is.
The easiest. Who doesn't want to know the easiest way to do something?
Absolutely.
Should put the hard way.
I think that's all the big reason why we all pick PowerApps is like the easier way rather than, trying to write something in C# and taking a lot longer and a lot more details, or Python or what have you,
Yeah, exactly. And, coming back to model-driven apps, model apps are super simple to get up to speed, and just have an app working within 30 minutes. If you have the chance to do a model-driven app over a Canvas app, right, that's always the first one you should be reaching in your tool belt for, in my opinion.
Really? Okay.
If it fits your use case.
Yeah.
Less hours of work.
Yeah, I've done most of my stuff in Canvas apps, but
all right, high five.
Yeah, absolutely. But just what you've been saying about model driven, I know we're sort of tied to the Dataverse, but Dataverse is a great data source, and that's probably a good word to tell people is like we should be reaching more for the model driven probably more often than what we are. In your opinion, what do Power Apps makers need most help with?
Oh man, I just say getting started. Getting past that square one is always the hardest part of any programming language. And I think that there's a lot of content out there on YouTube, which is certainly helpful. Lots of great like beginner content. But I'm not sure that anyone has really come up with that killer course that everyone sees as if you want to learn Power Apps, this is the place where you should start. I watched a really awesome set of videos by Shane Young that used to be on edX, right? It's kind of like a Coursera or Udemy style website, and that's how I first started to learn. But I don't think it's there anymore. I think Microsoft might have replaced with it something on Udemy, but if people are just starting out, I'm not sure where they would want to go to start, and so I think that's like the biggest thing, right?
Yeah.
I should probably be here with a solution or something, but
yeah. Well, if somebody they found your blog and their boss said, "Hey, you need to learn Power Apps. You know nothing about Power Apps, but I want you to learn it." And they found your blog. Is there? Do you have any type of, on your site? This is step 1, step 2. This is my suggested way of picking up the topics. Or do you have any suggestion for that type of person?
Man, Darren, you're giving me free content ideas. I should really do that, right? The Power Apps startup manual, that type of thing.
Absolutely.
I'd say that the biggest skills you need to have in Canvas are probably just, first of all, mastering forms, and second, mastering galleries, because you're going to reuse those skills over and over and over again. I think I have an article called 10 Things You Should Know About Power Apps Forms. That's a great place to start. It has all sorts of jumping off points to things like data validation and error handling. Sorry, I should explain. Data validation is making sure the data in your form, like a phone number, is entered as a phone number. Error handling is what do you do when you try and submit the form but it doesn't go. Things like form modes. You can have a form in new mode, which makes a new record, or edit mode, which lets you update a current record, or view mode, which lets you view but not edit the data. So go check out 10 Things You Should Know About Power Apps Forms, and that'll give you all sorts of ideas about what you should be learning in that topic area, which I think is one of the killer skills you got to have in Canvas apps along with galleries.
Absolutely. What's the handiest tip that maybe it's not all that obvious?
Okay, yeah, this is one that's super duper not obvious, and maybe you can put this in your show notes too, Darren.
Absolutely.
Now, when you boot up a Canvas app for the first time on a computer, the first thing you notice is there's this huge purple PowerApps title bar that's taking up a lot of space, a lot of real estate. And guess what? No one ever needs to click on it. It's taking space away from your beautiful app. So what if you could go ahead and hide that? What if you could hide that so folks don't see it? All you have to do is go to the URL, in your web browser, and at the end of it, type the and symbol, hide navbar equals true, and symbol, hide navbar equals true. Then when you supply that link for folks to go and open up your Power App, it's never going to open up with that Power Apps title bar taking up space at the top anymore. And if you want more tips, just check out the hashtag Power Apps Tips hashtag, which is one I started a couple of years ago, and a few folks have jumped on the bandwagon, and you'll just get all sorts of awesome Power Apps tips from Twitter. There's one that I'd really like to share with folks that I just put out. It's called the phone number input mask component.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're at the top right now.
Yeah. And I can't believe this problem had been solved in the Power Apps for now. So if you type in a phone number, right, with just numbers and digits, what would you want to see? You'd want to see the formatting around it, the brackets, the dashes, the dots. Back in the days of Microsoft Access, we could do that by using something called an input mask. What I've done is I've created a component that uses a similar input mask style to allow you to be able to format phone numbers. And that makes they're all displayed consistently in the database as well as on your screen. So I'd really love to pump that up. go check for it on the PowerApps components samples gallery on the official Microsoft website. And you can download this component for free. That's right. You do not have to do any work at all. You just download it. You define a phone number format. And then when folks type a phone number into your Canvas app, it's going to come out in the proper format.
Very cool. Yeah, I think probably almost every app, every database entry app, you might need something like that in Canvas apps. It looks like you also you take into consideration the different country, formats for the different countries and stuff. That's very good.
Yeah, that's right, Darren. So if you're living in the UK, like the United Kingdom, you know that if you type 01 at the start of your phone number, it formats differently from when you're typing 02. So we can handle multiple phone number formats in this component by detecting what were the first two digits that were typed in, first few digits that were typed in.
Is there anything else that you'd like to share with the viewers?
If you're looking for PowerApps help, just go to MatthewDevaney.com. You'll know you're in the right spot because you'll see lots of fun cat pictures. It's really, really pink. And make sure to hit me up on Twitter and let me know which ones you like.
Well, thanks again for coming on the channel.
Thanks for having me, Darren. It's been a pleasure being here.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Guys, for some reason, YouTube thinks you're going to like this video next. Let's see if they're right. Or you can select this playlist, which I've selected for you based on the content you're currently watching. Guys, gotta hurry. Click one of them. Otherwise, YouTube's going to autoplay some other video, which you probably don't want.